Want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Stephanie Ayala, Sales Manager for Innso. Joined with colleagues today to discuss improving CX in the new normal post-COVID-19. But before I go ahead and introduce our panelists, I want to mention a couple housekeeping items. Want to tell everyone that we plan for this webinar to be interactive, an interactive discussion among the panelists, and we would also like for our audience to be involved as well. So we ask for your participation. We're going to be sending out a couple poll questions throughout the webinar. We ask that you would submit your responses so we can get your input. And also, if you were to have any questions throughout this webinar, you can feel free to submit those questions to us. And after the presentation, we hope to be able to address those questions with the remaining time. And also mentioning that the webinar is being recorded. We plan to send it to you in a follow-up email along with the deck that's being presented today. So I want to welcome everyone again to our webinar today. Again, my name is Stephanie Ayala, Sales Manager at Innso, and wanting to introduce our panelists with us today. We have Mark Varel, who's Head of Solutions at Innso. Hi, Mark. Can you introduce yourself to the webinar?
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Great to meet you. So my name's Mark. I'm responsible for solutions within Innso. So my role is helping our clients to design and implement innovative and cost-effective solutions in the new normal and in their new normal. It's great to meet you all today.
Thank you, Mark. And also joining us today, we have Jason Brown, who's Director of IT Solutions at Sitel. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Stephanie. Nice to be here. Nice to see everybody today. Looking forward to being on this panel and being part of this discussion.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us. Looking forward to this discussion and being able to learn from this webinar, and hopefully everyone will be able to take away some valuable material from this discussion. So moving right along, as we can all see and experience today, we know that things have changed for sure. We know that organizations across the globe are trying to figure out how they're going to be able to deliver customer care in a post-COVID-19 world. And it's interesting because in many regions around the world, we can see that, well, even here in the US, we can see that they're facing difficulties and challenges in doing so. But what's interesting as well is that this pandemic is very different regionally. We know that in some regions across the globe, they're already past perhaps the confinement stage or phase, and already are getting back into business as usual per se. And whereas other places are having, you know, a lot of struggles right now with getting back into business. Now, I think we can all agree that no matter where we look at regionally, we can agree that things have indeed changed. Things are not going to return to being what they once were, except now that we're going to have what is called, what many people are calling the new normal. So it's a very interesting time, that's for sure. And I think that when we think about this, many organizations are rushing, trying to deliver that customer care and trying to get back into the swing of things. And it can be very easy to overlook the fact that when we think of customer experience, we cannot, forget the fact that customer experience truly begins with employee experience. And many organizations could be overlooking that. Now, to address this issue, Innso has provided many different applications and different offerings to Sitel and customers before, as COVID was happening and post-COVID. So it's an interesting time because one of the things that we're seeing that's very important is that from Innso, maintaining connection with our customers along with employees as well is pivotal during these times. And we have a structured approach to doing so that we've come up with. And that's happened because we've been very cautious to listen to customers and to employees, trying to really understand what is needed. So Mark's going to go ahead and share a bit about what structured approaches we're using right now to be able to combat, the changes that we're experiencing.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So that's a great introduction there. So what we've done with Innso is we've built a smart approach to the new normal based on 4 pillars. And so the first pillar is sustain. So this was the way that people were dealing with the pandemic as it's rolled around the globe. So this is understanding the initial impact on your business and on your markets, how you continue your operation, how you reduce and mitigate your risk, how you build and maintain trust with your customers, and you enable retention of your customers and their loyalty. Really important, as Stephanie's already called out, is how do you stay close and motivate your workforce. And this is a new workforce, a changing workforce. A lot of people are now working remote, and that's a very interesting new dynamic that organizations need to deal with. And finally, how do you manage that communication, both with your employee workforce and also with your customers, and keep everything up to date when things are changing very rapidly and very locally? Our second pillar is transform. So how do you maintain your business and customer engagement? So are you looking, and should you be looking, to enhance your digital and conversational channels? Is this now the right time to move away from the traditional voice and email? Are you looking at new ways of working? Are customers now more receptive, or is the time now right to look at new ways of working? And finally, aligned to this is, are you able to understand your return on investment, where to invest, how to invest at the right speed? And also what's quite important is the ability to recognize when you are failing and to be able to address that quickly. And finally, to implement the right solution. Our third pillar is reopen. So how are you planning to reopen the workplace? And so that's for your business. So whether that's retail, which is, could be a combination of high street and online, if it's hospitality, if it's utilities. So you've got a combination of traditional offline services, then you've got your physical services as well, and how are we going to manage those in a safe and controlled manner? As you reopen, how are you going to qualify your customer requests efficiently? How do you ensure that you deal with the most important, the highest value requests in the most efficient manner? Are you offering your customers and your employees the most flexible manner of engaging? Is your flexibility also able to manage the local situation? And finally, how do you prioritize the right requests when you from your customers? And our final pillar is evolve. So all tying together, are you thinking differently? Are your customers thinking differently? Are you using innovation and automation? Is the time now right to push ahead with those ideas that you were maybe thinking about, but you were concerned at the time maybe not right in 2019? Has this now happened due to the pandemic situation? Are you understanding how the world has changed, how your customers have changed, how your customers want to engage differently, how your customers have had to engage differently and now like that new approach? And finally, are you ready to embrace this change and to lead the way?
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mark. And now for a interactive part, we're going to go ahead and launch a poll. We'd like to get you guys' input. So let's get our poll launched. All right, so please respond. It says, do you believe that working from home will be the new normal for customer service teams? And we'll give a couple more seconds for everyone to respond who's going to participate. Okay. All right, and now for the responses. Okay, so we see 77% of the audience is saying yes, that they believe working from home is going to be the new normal, whereas 23% say no. I find that to be so interesting, considering the times where it seems like a normal thing now, yet people, there's still a group of people that believe that it's not going to be the new normal. It's very interesting. And speaking of which, there are some statistics that have been shared with regards to working from home. 36% of those working from home said that they would like to continue to do so after the pandemic, according to Prosper Insights. So that's very interesting, is about a third of the workforce. And then we have 62% say that they believe their country will not be able to make it through the crisis without brands playing a critical role. So that's very interesting too, as we see that customers are expecting brands to respond to the crisis during this time. It's very interesting stats to consider. Now we'll have Jason Brown share a bit on Sitel and also around the topic of working from home. So Jason, go ahead and share.
Sure, thanks, Stephanie. So just to give you guys a little bit of insight of Sitel Group, we're a global BPO company that uses our teams and our solutions of experts to provide a tailored solution to our consumers and provide an enhanced customer experience. Stephanie will move forward. Again, a little bit of insights about Sitel. We're a $1.73 billion revenue organization with around 400 plus clients, with 90,000 associates located in 27 countries, with over 100 offices across the globe. If we could look at our map here, Stephanie, and kind of show that this is our global presence. So we really are wherever your consumers need us to be and wherever you need us to be to provide that true client experience for your consumers. And as you can see, this lines up well with Innso and where Innso has deployed their solutions to help assist in that customer engagement.
Thanks, Jason. And Jason, it would be great if you can speak a bit on these figures here, as it's quite an interesting story.
Yeah, so as you can see, we know that the pandemic definitely had an effect on everyone and every area of the world. So Sitel was able to quickly move roughly 57,000 associates to an at-home environment very quickly with this pandemic strongly grasping the world. So Sitel's immediate response and flexibility to move this solution to an at-home environment to allow the continued engagement with consumers for our clients across the world.
Fantastic.
Now, one of the things that I'll talk about here, Stephanie, can you just go back to the previous slide, please?
Sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that Innso did in partnership with Sitel was to deploy an outbound SMS solution to allow communication with the Sitel employees based in Europe. Obviously, what we talked about earlier was within our sustain pillar, was around the requirement to stay close and motivate your workforce. So what we did here in conjunction with Sitel was to stay connected with their employees in EMEA by deploying a targeted SMS solution. So what we did here was a simple personalized SMS message that was going out to 60,000 employees within the region. And the purpose of this was to keep them informed, keep them engaged, give them information in terms of what was happening within their specific facility, what was happening to their specific work activities, how they were impacted, and what the recommendations were at a local level around health and safety, security and guidance, and ensure that they had a clear understanding of what their responsibilities are now within a work at home situation, that they were engaged, they had any questions, they could reach out to their supervisor, and they felt still part of the Sitel family, even though they'd had a quite traumatic event in terms of having to move away from the office to home, which as we all know, and we've all experienced it, is very challenging, and each individual will adapt to it in a different way. And so what we did was we did personalized notifications, taking them to a dedicated portal. The reason why we chose SMS as a platform, and we're seeing SMS as a very interesting channel at the moment, is that SMS is universal. It will work on whichever device, mobile device, the user has. If someone doesn't have a mobile device, it's very easy and low cost to provide them that to ensure communication. It's accessible across multiple devices. So it doesn't matter the manufacturer, it doesn't matter the operating system. Great thing about SMS over email is that it's guaranteed to be delivered, and it's guaranteed to be delivered to the on screen of the device. So it's very easy for the user to see the message, and it's very easy for them to understand and action on the message. And what we saw to confirm that was, out of the 60,000 employees that were part of this scheme, we had a 93% message open, read, and positive reaction from employees. So that's a really high percentage of employees who are engaged through this communication channel.
Great.
Yeah, and Mark, I think when you look at kind of what the future is going to look at and how we prepare for that new normal, we know that any solution that's out there, we need to ensure that we provide the flexibility to stay not only connected with your employees, but also with your consumers. And as part of that solution, I think it's important that we ensure that we provide the opportunities and the abilities for our consumers to self-service and really drive their customer touch points moving forward. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Innso is doing to kind of build for that?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so obviously we talked about SMS notification, so SMS outbound. What we've also seen as a really great channel is conversational SMS. So asynchronous communication works really well and within the B2B environment. You know, you're dealing with salespeople, you're dealing with people who are very busy, and they really appreciate and like the way of having quick, snappy offline conversations through SMS. It means they don't have to hang on the phone. It means they're not stuck on chat. It means it's much more reactive than email. What we've also seen in terms of the steering and the scheduling of both the physical, which we talked about, and the digital planning, is using the Innso appointment and calendar module. Very quick to deploy. It really helps to for both the brand and also the employees to be able to manage both themselves, but also to manage their facility. We're seeing it specifically globally in terms of the retail and also the hospitality, where we can't get straight back to, you know, normal footfall. We have to plan that. We have to manage how many people can come into our establishment, and things like appointments, a manager, and a calendar module are really beneficial. Self-care, as Jason said, really important. So it's a great way for customers to engage, to be able to either self-serve and get all the information they need, whether that's to check on the status of their order, to manage early stage collection, to look at FAQs. It's also a really good way to be a bit more interactive and to be able to track the status of their order, of their inquiry. And what's really important when we're seeing with the self-service piece, especially in the new normal, is taking that a little bit further so that the customer is able to help the brand by providing some information that allows the activity to be prioritized. So if you're in the hospitality industry, you know, your self-service is asking the question around, when is the booking? Is the booking within the next 2 days? because then we would want to treat that as a priority because of the customer sensitivity and also the commercial sensitivity. So it's really deploying self-service platforms, which really going to help the customer, but also to help the brand to manage the inquiry more efficiently.
Excellent. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to actually launch another poll. We'll be needing your input on these next questions. We actually have 2 questions in this poll. So let's see. Alrighty, so the first one says, have you invested or are you looking to invest in omnichannel CX since the start of 2020? You can answer yes or no. And then we've got a second question that says, which support channels have you added or are considering adding? And you can choose many options here. So we'll give you a little extra time on this one since we've got several options on the second question. It's a couple seconds. Okay. And let's wait for the results. Okay. So for those answering about the investment, we have 100% that have invested in omnichannel since the start or are looking to invest for 2020. So we see a trend there on omnichannel. And then we see for support channels, let's take a look here. The most popular seems to be at 60% for WhatsApp, live chat, and SMS. Okay, that's interesting. And following voice and email.
And Stephanie, that's really interesting, this snapshot from our audience, because that's similar to what we are seeing, you know, what I'm seeing from the customers that I'm talking to from a solutioning perspective. As you know, as I've already said on this call, you know, SMS, we've got a lot of interest specifically around the conversational piece. It seems to be a channel which has been a little bit underused, and it seems to be making a little bit of a comeback. Obviously, chat, you know, is becoming much more popular than the traditional channels like email. It's good to see WhatsApp in there as well.
Agreed, Mark. I think what we're seeing, sorry, Stephanie, I think what we're seeing is the use of those non-traditional voice channels to really drive the conversation, because the flexibility that provides in the timing and the responsiveness of those particular responses and engagement with the customer service departments.
What I find interesting too, guys, is that Facebook Messenger, Twitter, and Instagram seem to be at 20%. So it's on the lower end of the responses here. So that's interesting too. Would have expected a bit more popularity on those channels, and we've got 0 on Apple Business Chat and Google RCS. So yeah, interesting. Thank you guys for participating. Nice to see your input. Okay. So with that being said, sharing an interesting statistic with omnichannel in particular, there since the start of 2020, according to this stat from PwC report from them, they're saying that companies are investing in omnichannel at a great investments. It's a great jump since the beginning of the year. Excuse me. So they jumped from 20% to 80%. So we see a 60% jump on that investment, and that's very interesting considering your responses as well. So we're seeing that the trend for omnichannel is moving in an interesting direction. A lot of emphasis, at least from the start of 2020, and with being that we're talking about omnichannel in particular. I'll mention that at Innso, that's exactly what we're all about. With Innso, we see that we have an omnichannel customer service platform that really caters to this trend in particular. It's a tool that's created within the environment of the contact center. So speaking on that environment alone, we're seeing that the way that Innso is set up, it's set up in a way to really benefit the performance and the activity that's happening within the contact center environment more precisely. And at Innso, we fully believe in the importance of omni-channel when it comes to customer experience. We know that just like we're seeing in the statistics, that it's a very important thing to consider, and the investment in omni-channel is never going to do brands any wrong, because of the fact that customers are looking to engage with brands in a way that's more holistic rather than in a way that's like disjointed or filled with gaps. An example would be, say, like we just saw in your inputs, you know, some people may reach out through their preferred choice, like by, say, email. But then at a later stage, maybe they want to reach out to the brand via a different channel. So being able to connect the different channels into one unified place is very important. And we see that being available with Innso through our unified way of managing the conversation with the customer. And what's interesting too is that the benefits really trickle on different levels, from agent to customer to the brand. The agents are able to really meet the needs of the customer and service the customer in a more easier way. And customers are able to get what they need quicker, which is always a plus. I know for myself, whenever I call a particular brand, and I won't mention any names, but customer service at times seems to be lagging in some sense, where I have to repeat my story a number of times, and I can see that there's a disjointed reality in behind the scenes. So that's not pleasant for customers, of course. And then when we speak about the brand, the benefits for the brand, it's interesting, because when you bring these various tools or channels and interactions with customers into one place, the brand has a greater sense of control. They're really able to manage that end-to-end customer journey and be able to tweak things to further their growth. So we see benefits all across the board. And we want to share a bit more detail on what we've been doing since COVID. So we're going to share a bit of our use cases. And Mark, can you elaborate a bit on the various things that Innso's been doing?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So this first case is for our fiber optic company based in France, and they we've been working with them in terms of their installation function, and so they've been using the traditional channels, so voice and email. A lot of the voice has been outbound, so a lot of the activity is all around appointment bookings for engineers to either to deploy the fiber or to come to the customer and address some issues. And you know, we were talking to them post-COVID, and you know, their outbound channels, primarily voice, very inefficient, very costly. And we were in discussions around them about possible solutions when actually the COVID situation hit. And so when COVID hit, there was an immediate impact on them. Started off with a localized impact where there was technician and customer absence. So what was happening is either the technicians would have to contact the contact center, they'd have to then make an outbound call to the customer to cancel the booking, or the customer would have to come in and call the contact center, then the contact center would need to phone the technician. Very inefficient, very expensive. And then we had the situation where the whole country went into lockdown, and then what was happening is we had to then cancel all the appointments again at short notice. Again, very inefficient and cost ineffective process. Now, as lockdown measures were eased, a solution was needed to be able to manage that. And what that really was, from from the brand's perspective, was really they were accelerating their thinking in terms of they always knew that they had an ineffective process and an ineffective solution, but they had to really focus on addressing it to be able to come out of the pandemic an immediate pandemic situation in a cost-effective manner. So this we built on our three pillars. So sustain. So we implemented a new channel for them, which was the personalised SMS notification. So this is updates to the customers around cancellations of appointments. So this was great from a customer perspective because it allowed our customers to be kept updated. It maintains the trust and loyalty. They know what's going on. You know, even if it's not great news, it's better to be informed and to have that personalized information. And it reduces the impact on the contact center from an inbound perspective, because the customers now weren't phoning up and saying, well, is my engineer going to come or not? I'm not sure whether, you know, there's a lockdown within my town. All of those inbound calls were not were satisfied by the outbound SMS. The second section would be on the reopen. So here we implemented a new channel for them, which was conversational SMS. And so here, this was all around the interaction with the contact center, around with the technician and the customer, around the rescheduling of home visits as pandemic situation eased, and so we could restart having engineers come out to customers for homes in a secure and a safe manner. And what we wanted to do is to have that as efficient and to be as use as little number of staff as possible in terms of managing all of that communication. So rather than going back to what they had before, which was the outbound calling, we implemented conversational SMS for them. So replacing that costly process, here keeping both the customer and the employees fully updated, very flexible solution, very reactive to what was happening at a local situation. As I said before, and you know, I think you've seen it as well in your industries. Asynchronous, great way of communicating. Works really well with technicians. You know, they're always on the phone or in their car and going to the next job. Asynchronous communication, really efficient for them. The other great thing, I've already called it out, the guarantee that the message has been received and really likely to be read. Finally, from a brand perspective, we had the agents being able to manage multiple conversations within the SMS, much more efficient than the single outbound call. Finally, we had the third pillar here for them was the evolve. So here we implemented another new channel for them, which was the self-service portal. So this was to allow the technicians to manage their daily calendar and the customers to manage their own appointments. So here, so that the rather than the technician having to phone into the contact center and tell them what jobs they can or can't do, the engineer can all manage all of that themselves. The customer is able to see what their appointment is. If they have a problem, you know, they're not available, they can reschedule it themselves. So again, really benefiting the brand by reducing all of this unnecessary outbound cost and the inefficiency there. Got a great 360 view for both of the technicians and what they're doing individually, but also what's happening within the local environment, which is really important within the post-COVID world. Able to manage the workflow much more automatically and efficiently through Innso rather than through a agent. So that's, you know, putting the job on hold, closing it, rescheduling it, managing the individual communications out to both the technician and the customer automatically. And finally, ensuring that the brand does what they say they're going to do. So if the technician is due to be meeting that customer on that day, they are meeting that customer on that day. Or if they can't, they're informing that customer up front. So you're delivering on your commitment and the customer is maintaining their trust with you. So what we saw in summary there was a reduction in outbound call costs, reduction in our technician visit costs, improved customer satisfaction, and reduced agent effort.
And Mark, I think it's important, from two fronts here to kind of point out two different things that I think are really key here. Number one, on the business side, engaging a new channel, a non-voice channel to, really push client interactions or our consumer interactions into a lower cost channel via SMS, but it also frees up your agents to handle more interactions at once to give you some greater cost efficiencies there. And then number two, on the consumer side, really allowing for that flexibility to really be where the consumer needs you to be, or allow the consumer to communicate with you through their preferred channel, whether it be non-voice or voice. But the ability to provide the self-service options and really look at, let's say, the scheduling and the calendar piece to communicate with the service technician and see when or where they can have their services installed, provides for that true self-service capabilities and that improved customer experience overall. So those are two key points there that I think are key to call out here.
Yeah, exactly, Jason. And what's interesting with this client is that they were considering all of this pre-COVID, but for various reasons, they were not able to, action on that. And you can see from the figures here that, it was the right way for them to go. These figures are really powerful, and in hindsight, they probably think, well, actually, it was quite great that that we actually reacted in this way to the pandemic situation. With the SMS notifications, $129,000 saving within the 3 months directly when that market was impacted, and directly through lockdown, through the pandemic. During the reopen phase, $41,000 in savings through the conversational channel. And then the really great one in terms of what we're looking at in terms of the savings from deploying the self-service portals, 2.9 million is kind of what they're expecting in terms of their savings there.
Yeah, and it just really shows the key piece here that really talks about that, unfortunately, the pandemic has really pushed the digital piece forward, and it has really shown that brands have to engage very quickly in that particular channel, especially as we move forward and as we set that new normal for customer interactions.
Exactly. So we'll go on to our second case study now. So this is for a global hospitality hospitality brand, and in terms of their current channels or their typical channels, they're really just focused on the main two: inbound voice and inbound email. So what they saw as a result of lockdown was, an incredibly high drop in communication. So, no one was in a situation to be booking, any kind of hospitality as, the lockdowns hit country by country. And so what they came to Innso was to discuss around, okay, we've contracted a lot, but we know that we're going to be opening up again, and we want to be able to manage that opening up again in a controlled manner and an efficient manner, so that we are focusing on the priority activities from a customer perspective. So what they wanted to do would be to reduce the pressure on the whole contact center to allow them to focus on the high priority, customer sensitive or high value requests. So what they wanted to do was to look at the solutions that Innso could help them with to be able to manage that sharp ramp in terms of inbound calls. So as I said before, all they had before was just agents answering the phone. So if there weren't enough agents, the customer would just queue and queue and queue. So what we did for them was work in a situation where we made some changes to their IVR to allow some analysis to be provided back to the customer if they were going to be queuing for a significant amount of time. And if they were going to be queuing, then we gave them the option to self-serve or to switch to an alternate channel. So, and both self-service and chat were new channels for this brand. They had not used them significantly before. So what we were able to do there was keep the customers who are high priority, high value, and the brand wanted to serve through voice, keep them within the IVR, but give those other customers the option to either self-serve or to switch to chat in this circumstance. And that was really successful, and they really appreciated that solution in terms of, yes, we know we're going to have a problem in terms of the spike in volume. We want to keep maintain our relationship with all our customers. We want to give some autonomy to the customers. If we can't service them through voice, let's give them the option of a number of other channels where we can treat their request with the right level of priority.
And I think, again, just the overall enhancement to the consumer experience is important here because, number one, as we start to get back to some of the new normal, and we understand that, especially as call centers are ramping up their staffing and trying to get back to that normal phase, that there's going to be, some shortage in terms of being able to handle the volume come in as again, business returns to normal. So allowing this opportunity for a customer to move into another low-cost channel and more of an immediate channel in response to resolve their issue really provides that enhanced customer experience that's going to be important, especially moving forward, so that consumers stay connected and stay loyal to that particular brand. So extremely important piece here.
Exactly. And so, Stephanie, just to go on to the next slide, just summarize some of the benefits that we're bringing to this client. So they were piloting it in one market, and then would then look out to validate that it worked in that market and then roll it out, which is again very important, because obviously we see in lots of industries, specifically hospitality, opening up per market, but then we'll also see localized shutdown, and then reopening, and then maybe scaling back and then reopening again. So really important for them to have that type of solution where they can manage that flexibility. So what we saw in terms of benefits, so reduced queue time for the customer if they wanted to opt to the self-service or the chat options. The agents and the brand were able to focus on the high priority requests. So these would be like, customers who were making inquiries about a booking within the next 72 hours, for example. Much easier to manage staff availability across 3 channels, voice, chat, and self-service. So a lot of, self-service, would be managed as a back office type activity. Improve customer experience, satisfaction, even if they're not getting through to someone on the phone, they're being dealt with through the chat, or they're logging their requests through self-service. So from their perception, they're getting through to the brand in a much more efficient way, reducing the risk of lost contacts and lost revenue. And finally, having, as I said earlier, having a solution that's scalable and reactive to both local and market situations.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for that. It's very interesting to see how things have shifted since COVID, and as we're moving forward to this new normal. As we know that the goal for sure is to be able to resume business and hopefully stress-free, and most of all look forward to a brighter future, and hopefully one that's more prosperous in the end for all businesses, really. And at this point, we've ended a bit early, so we do have some room for questions, which is good. Let me go ahead and draw those out. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this is a Sitel question. So I think, Jason, this might be a good one for you. What's next for Sitel regarding work at home?
I think that's really kind of the future of where we're going. And we know that we need to ensure that we have the flexibility for our agents to work in a work at home environment, but to have the solutions and the tools available as well, which we have more than quickly ramped and allowed ourselves that flexibility to provide that at-home experience, but also to look at kind of the hub and spoke type experience as well, where we can bring those at-home agents into some of what we call our max hub locations for either training or for 1 day a week to do coaching, those type of things, but to really provide that flexibility for our agents to be where they need to be in a situation based upon the current realities of the world, but to handle our consumer and our client interactions as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
So Jason, Sitel have had work at home solutions for a number of years. How has the COVID and the pandemic situation accelerated customers' thoughts about work at home? How was your customer perception of work at home as a customer, a agent deployment model changed?
I think it's really showed the flexibility and the real solution that a work at home solution can be. I think it's shown that you can get the same amount of productivity as well as the same high customer engagement or customer satisfaction scores as well. And with us being able to deploy a solution rather quickly within basically 4 weeks to get an at-home environment set up and rolling has really provided the flexibility and the immediacy to deploy those solutions that our clients are looking for at this point, especially in this new normal.
That's really great. That's really great.
Mark, I'll put this next question to you. How did Innso manage the pandemic with their own employees?
Oh yeah, well, that's a good one. So very similar to Sitel, and I guess the audience here. So what we put in place was as soon as we were getting in a situation and we were getting local guidance in terms of either working on on premise or at home, what we did was, actually, I think we probably preempted it in most of our markets, is we encouraged our employees to work from home. One of our key, we had two key things really to manage through the pandemic. One is, the security and well-being of our employees. That's number one. And very closely behind that was maintaining the quality and level of service to our customers. So, the first thing was to make sure that all of our employees were safe and in a secure working environment. So for many of those, that was moving from our office facility to working at home. So what we put in place there was to make sure that they had all the tools that they need. We had a daily morning call to touch base, to talk about any specific needs, and to share our experience. As we talked about here, working from home, for some of us, it is the old normal, but for a lot of us, it is the new normal, and people take a certain level of time to adjust to that and need a certain different type of support. So we did that. We had a daily catch-up call to make sure everyone was working in a comfortable situation, and there was no negative impact on this from a work-life balance perspective. And then obviously the second thing was around our customers. So, our customers were getting significantly impacted by the pandemic, as their customers were impacted, then that would impact on us. So we wanted to stay very close to our customers to understand what their needs are. So, what their needs were in terms of their BAU activity, but could we also provide any support with them with the tools that we have available to them to help them to sustain their activity and to be ready for when their specific activity was coming back to life, if you like, as the pandemic situation eased.
Okay, so we have a couple more minutes left, so let me get to another question here. We have a question regarding what is the average delay to deploy these types of digital solutions? Do you do pilots? How long does it take to implement? Sure, I can answer that one. So it's going to mostly depend on the project and the scope of the project, but we have seen projects that have deployed in as little as 2 weeks to a maximum of about 4 weeks or so. So it is highly contingent on the project itself, and we do have instances that we have deployed pilots for sure. So
yeah, and so one of the things that I'll add there, Stephanie, and it's one of the things that our founder Nicholas Raffin was speaking to me about a couple of days ago. You know, you need to also be prepared for some of these implementations or potential solutions that you're identifying, you know, in the new normal. You need some of them that are going to fail, but you need to prepare, if they're going to fail quickly so that you can move quickly on to the next one. Because we all know that your competitor is doing something different. And, you know, if you're taking 1 month and they're taking 1 week, then you're behind, you know. So go quick. If it's not working, stop, go move to something else.
we have another question here, and I think we have, okay, we do have a couple minutes left. So Mark, maybe you can answer this one. What is the integration capability of Innso with other apps? For example, WFM tools like IEX.
So we have API connectors, so they can integrate with Innso. So that would be to around the customer record and what we would call the case management, and then obviously we can interface with APIs that products like IEX would have. So we would need to look on a case-by-case basis, but we would typically integrate through either APIs, which could be either way, which could be public APIs that already exist, or custom APIs developed for the product, or for the project. Or alternatively, we could integrate through mechanisms like batch, so overnight feeds, things like that. Or we can have shared integration with the products. It depends on the case by case.
Sure. Okay. We have another question that's come in that says, do you help clients design the digital journey with regards to journeys?
Absolutely on that one. I just seen that one come through. So yeah, so for what Innso is able to provide is that full service. So we can provide the consultation in terms of documenting and understanding the journeys in terms of the as is, and also working with the brand on the to be. And then, so working on the design, working on the ROI model for the new and improved journey, and then also working on the technical implementation. So the full life cycle there. Yeah. That's a great question.
Yeah, perfect. And I think we have room for one more question. So I'll go ahead and take that. We have, how does Innso compare to other omni-channel solutions? Capabilities, pricing. So with regards to that, I think Mark, we can both answer that question and give some input. But with regards to capabilities, we know that Innso is very much competitive in the market, in that, specifically speaking to the contact center itself, it's a tool, like I mentioned, that was built for the contact center. So when we're talking about capabilities, the capabilities are created in a way to really facilitate all the activities that are happening in that environment more than our competitors could offer, because their offering was not created in the contact center like Innso was. So with regards to that, I know that Innso is going to adapt greatly to the contact center environment. And we have a question here on, we'll have to address these after, so I'll follow up. This one is in regards to demos. We don't have a demo for today, but we certainly do demos to demonstrate the tool.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Stephanie, on that question. So I think we're sending out communication, aren't we, after this webinar? So your contact details will be in there. So any of our audience who would like a demo, then if they get back to yourself, then it will, the demo will come through through my team in terms of the solutions team. Yeah, absolutely. Able to do a demo as a follow-up to this.
Perfect. All right, well, we're ending right on time. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar. It was a pleasure to have the panelists, Mark and Jason, having a discussion around CX and the new normal. Thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.